All right. All right. Hi,
Well, I'm
everyone.
going to do another introduction.
Sorry.
No problem. Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 161 of the Minnesota Outdoor Skills and Stewardship Series. My name is Jeff Letterman with the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources Fish and Wildlife Division. Today, we're talking about spring warblers. I'm so excited to have this topic today because it's just a great time of the year. I saw the extended forecast here. It's supposed to be very nice and above freezing for the next several days. So hopefully spring will be kicking in full gear. We just opened turkey hunting season. You see the picture I have in my background. If you got out and had a chance to go turkey hunting, that's great, but that'll be going on for the next few weeks. But today, and one of the best things about turkey hunting is you can potentially see a lot of warblers. So today we have Amy Simso Dean joining us to talk about warblers and where you can see them and how to find them and enjoy and identify some of these wonderful creatures that are coming through our area in the next few weeks. So welcome, Amy.
Thank you so much, everyone. Yep, my name is Amy Simso Dean. I have been birding for about 30 years now, and I am the executive director and founder of My Bird Club, which is a youth bird watching club in the metro area. But we have a lot to go through, so I'm just going to get in. And you see that I'm talking about spring male warblers because those tend to be the ones with the most color. And we'll talk about that and see why I'm focusing on the males. And there we go. So where are these warblers coming from and why are we so excited? So spring is really exciting because all these birds are flooding up from the south, whether they're in the southern US, South America, or Central America. They're flying right up that Mississippi flyway and coming up to Minnesota so that they can eat bugs. These are bug eaters, and obviously no bugs in Minnesota in the winter, so they fly south to follow that food supply and then flying north to find nesting habitat and bugs to feed their young. So that's why they're coming up, and this is right about when they're going to start. So they seem really bright and shiny. We've seen two pictures. They look so pretty, but warblers are trickier than you think. And why is that? Because here we have four warblers, and you'd think, oh, if I look in my field guide, that should be really easy to tell these guys apart. But these are the exact same species. That is a blackbirdian warbler. So that could be the male and the female. It could be a male juvenile. They all look different. This is also the same species, the chestnut-sided warbler. In the fall, the males turn this crazy bright green color. So you really sometimes are not just learning 30 some species, you're learning 60, 80 species. So we're just going to start talking about the males. And this is the problem when you're out birding, they kind of do this. They pop in, they got a lot going on and you barely see them. So how in the heck, when they're doing all that, can we narrow it down to what we're seeing? We also tend to see them like this, from below, buried behind bushes. So we got to pick out those field marks really quickly so we know what we're doing. The first thing to know though is how big they are. So they are chickadee size or smaller. So these are tiny little birds. They are moving fast. They have eaten absolutely every single pixie stick. So they have very just hopping all over the place, whereas a chickadee is maybe like a 3 pixie sticker. Habitat, they like trees, they like water. So it really depends on species. This is a really cool graphic I found at the Bell Museum. That shows how on one tree, different birds can be either feeding interior, exterior, top, and bottom. So knowing where a bird feeds, high, mid, low, or by water, can help you narrow your choices down as well. A great one is to bird by ear. Merlin app is great. It's a free download from the Cornell Lab of Ornithology. And there's a sound ID button. You hit it, you hold it up, and your phone will tell you what it's hearing. It does get things wrong, but it's a great way to train your ear, but also know it's in the area. All right, so yellow or not, here they come because 22 of these birds are yellow. So when you're out birding, I like to tell people don't look at color. Color is kind of the last thing you want to look at because there's a lot of little brown birds out there. So let's start with yellow. And when we're looking at yellow birds, the key is what else is going on. If you're just looking for yellow, you're going to spend a lot of time. So Kind of the warbler of all warblers, I'm going to say, is our myrtle warbler. Some field guides will call it a yellow rumped, and lots of birders call it a butterbutt because it has a butter-colored butt right above its tail, little patch. It's got some yellow on its shoulders too. This is the first warbler that arrives in the spring. It is also the most common. So if you know what they look like, you know when you're not seeing them. The nice thing is the females look very similar. They're just more gray. So get to know these guys. Once you know them, then you know when you're not seeing them. Okay, so we're going to start with what I like to call our yellow +1. These birds are primarily yellow and they have one field mark. They're just like doubling down. So our first one, aptly called, is the yellow warbler. So the yellow warbler, red streaky stripes on its chest. So it's all yellow. They are a nice low bird, which is nice. They're often found by water, and their call is like a sweet, sweet, I'm so sweet. But really just looking for that plain yellow bird with those rusty streaks on the male, and you've got yourself a yellow warbler. The Wilson's warbler is also a lower down feeder, and it has a little black yarmulke or a little black cap, and that's all it has going on. They're a little more skulky and in on the interior, not quite as common as that yellow, but pretty easy to ID once you see them. And the last one, which is a lot more rare, you don't even have to worry about it, just know it's out there, is the hooded warbler. And so instead of a hat, they're going with like a snowmobile mask. They are also a little bit mid-story to low, but less common to see. Okay, so now to review, we've got yellow birds that just double down. They have one field mark. Our yellow warbler has that rustiness. Our Wilson's has a cap, and our hooded has a hood. Very nicely named. All right, 3 down. All right, these birds they decide that gray wing is the way they're gonna go. They're gonna have a gray wing, and that's gonna be where they're gonna start. So first we have a prothonotary. They like swampy areas. They just have a gray wing. They are all yellow with a gray wing. And they have a big black eyeball, which is really nice. The blue wing warbler takes it up a notch. They've got some white wing bars. I'm a big fan of knowing where white is on birds because when they're backlit, when other things are going on, you can see that white. So they got a gray wing with some wing bars. They also have that nice dark eye stripe and a real buzzy call. Then the pine warbler takes it up another notch. So they have like 2 kind of bolder wing bars and they're a little more smudgy than the other guys. These were my nemesis warbler for years because they like to be way up high in, you guessed it, pine trees. Also, they kind of sound like a chipping sparrow, but 2 white wing bars. And they're white under their butt because they're often so high, that's kind of what you're looking at. All right, so these are our birds with gray wings. We got our prothonotary, our blue-winged, and our pine warbler. All right, these guys, like, it's all up in their face, right? So they're black and white and yellow face. So I like to think of it as like a lucha libre, which is the type of Mexican wrestling where they wear the nice mascara masks. So these guys, we're gonna ignore some of their body stuff going on. They're the masked wonders. So our most common one is aptly named the common yellowthroat. And it's going to be in water near marshes, cattails, nice and loud. You're going to hear it long before you see it, and they go witchity, witchity, witchity. You'll hear it all the time in these marshy areas, and they just have this nice black mask with a little white on the outside. Very dramatic, very easy to spot. Now our yellow-throated is just moving into the state and aptly named. Big yellow throat with a nice kind of black and white mask going on. They're going to be mid-story to high, and again, they're not quite as common. They're just starting to move in, but really a showstopper when you do see them. And the golden wing is another one. They are a little more low, but they have that Oreo look about them if you have Oreo cream on the top. They also have that golden wing on them, which makes them very aptly named. So these are our black and white lucha libre birds. So just think of those. They got the face mask. That's what you're really looking for. All right, now these are my fancy pants birds because their fanciness is happening down near their tummies. All right, we've got a magnolia. Now you notice they do have a mask, so they could probably hop over to our lucha libre, but wow, look at that great chest bar with those cool streaks coming down. They're really dramatic. They're kind of a mid-story. They can be high, they can be low, but when you see one, really, really obvious. And compared to that yellow rump warbler, which has a white throat, these guys have that nice yellow throat. But that nice streaky chest on that yellow is pretty obvious. The Canada warbler is a little less common, but you will see them and they have a nice necklace. So everyone will say, oh yeah, it's the bird with the necklace. And you'll see some other ID things like a nice eye ring, yellow throat, but that necklace is really indicative of what they're looking like. And then a really uncommon one, but it does exist, is the prairie warbler. And so they're kind of all streaky on their sides, a little streaky on the face. Some people say they look tired, like they have bags under their eyes because of that swoop. Obviously, they're in a prairie habitat. Doesn't mean we won't see them, but they're a little less common, like in the metro area, north, but maybe in that southwest corner. All right, so these are our fancy pants birds. They got streakiness going on underneath. So our Canada, our pine, and our magnolia. And throughout the state, that magnolia is going to be our most common one. All right, these are our smudgy streakers. So they just got a lot going on. They got a lot of colors. Everything's not necessarily crisp and clean all the time. Could give you some hiccups, but we'll point out what to look for. So the first one is our black-throated green, very common throughout Minnesota, migrating through. They like to be up north when they're nesting a lot of the times. Black throat, not a lot of birds in the warbler family are going to have those nice black throats, which smudgy yellow all over, and then that nice bright wing bar, so you can kind of see them. But that black throat's a real nice giveaway. The chestnut-sided is also really, really common around here. Nice mid-story to low, and that chestnut swoop right underneath their wing is just a giveaway field mark. That's really, once you see that, you know you have your chestnut-sided warbler. And then finally, the Cape May, not finally, there's one more. The Cape May is kind of yellow, smudgy all over, but they have that nice kind of chestnut mask. White under the tail, they're a little more of a high feeder, but because they have that chestnut, black swoosh and then the yellow underneath, even from a distance, you can kind of see what's that pattern that's going on their face. And then streaky all over their chest. And finally, the palm warbler. And this is a fun one because it feeds on the ground and not a lot of warblers do that. And they pump their tail up and down. So their behavior is one of their great field marks. So they're pumping their tail up and down. They're also yellow under the tail, yellow under the throat with a rusty cap. But you see a warbler on the ground bouncing its tail up and down, that's going to be your palm warbler. All right, so here are smudgy streakers again. We start with our Cape May up on the left with our nice chestnut mask. Moving over to that black-throated green, you can see the black throat, the chestnut-sided with its chestnut swoop, and then the palm warbler, remembering it's on the ground and bouncing its tail up and down as it goes. All right, these guys are going gray. These are our silver foxes. They are gray on the head, and there's kind of 5 of them. Sorry, Tennessee, you're a little more drab compared to a lot of our bright warblers, but you are the Tennessee warbler and you have a lot of gray on you with kind of an olivey back, but the eye stripe is really a dead giveaway. They have that eye line, a little white above, but that dark eye line on a gray face really points you to this Tennessee warbler. They are very, very common. So they pop in, you're going to see them all over the place. They often are hanging out, in my experience, with these Nashville warblers. So Nashvilles are wearing like a hoodie, right? So it's not under their chin, it's just on the top. And that white eye ring really stands out against that gray hood. So if you just have a gray hoodie with a white eye ring, you've got that Nashville warbler hopping around. The northern parula is a little different. They are way, way high up. They again have a little like a deeper hoodie. They're just showing a little bit of your chin. 2 wing bars, but they are way up high with an upward buzzy sound, and they look a little surprised because they have that broken eye ring. So just a little above, a little bit of a clowny look about them. And that's our northern parula, but you're going to hear this zip, And that's them at the tippy tops of the trees hollering at us. And then our two like fully hooded ones, the Connecticut warbler, you can find these in Saxon Bog up north of Cloquet. They like to nest up there, and they have a gray full hood with a white eye ring, just a bold white eye ring. And easy to tell apart when you get to their close looking morning warbler, because they have a gray hood but no white eye ring. So these guys are a little low and skulky too. Not as common. I got really excited when I saw one in Veterans Park in Richfield 2 years ago. So they are low and skulky. And again, I'll just pop back to that bright eye ring versus no eye ring. So they're morning, they're a little more dark, a little more gray looking than our Connecticut. All right, so here are our silver foxes. We've got our Tennessee warbler with our nice eye line on the upper left, hanging out with our Nashville warbler, which has its white eye ring and it's wearing a hoodie, down to our Parula, some people say Parula, that's at the tippy tops of the trees, a little more of a hoodie with that kind of clowny look about it. The morning warbler, which looks sad and dark with a full hood, and the Connecticut warbler with its white eye ring, but a full hood again. So. All right, and then, my friends, there is the orange-crowned warbler. This is the warbler. When I look at a warbler and it has no field marks, I think, hey, that's an orange-crowned warbler, because you never see the orange crown. I don't know what to tell you. They are drab, drab, drab. They do have yellow under the tail, so if you see white under the tail, it's not an orange-crowned warbler. But yeah, it's a toss-away ID. And better warbler people than me will say, well, you can see this, this, this. All right, so here is a recap. We've got our birds that have yellow plus 1 field mark, our smudgy streakers, our silver foxes, our lucha libres, our gray wings, and our fancy pants. And these are kind of the most common that are in those categories. All right. Now, why was the myrtle warbler not in here? Remember at the beginning, I started with our myrtle warbler, and that's because it is a smudgy streaker. It has a lucha libre mask. It is a silver fox because it has a gray hood. It's got gray wings with wing bars, and it is super fancy. So that's why it just gets to be in its own category. But again, look for that butter butt, and you've got a butter butt. All right, and then the orange crowned warbler. Hey, no field marks, must be an orange crowned. All right, so that is yellow or not, because now we get into the slightly easier ones, which are the birds that have not yellow on them. The nice one that's very common across the state is the American red start, and it's black with salmon markings. The female is nice and handy because she is gray with yellow markings in the same spot. They're mid-canopy to low, just a real bright, flashy bird to see. The black and white warbler is black and white. It is our zebra, and its behavior is great because it acts like a nuthatch. So instead of gleaning on branches or trunks, or it is gleaning on branches and trunks versus out in the leaves, like picking away at the very edges, you'll see it kind of creeping along like a nuthatch. And that's our black and white warbler. The blackpoll isn't a chickadee, so you got to look at all those dang chickadees and realize you might be seeing a blackpoll. So the blackpoll doesn't have that bold throat that a black-capped chickadee has. It just has like a little chin strap. It's acting a little hipster, bold yellow legs, and way streakier. But sometimes we kind of glance over those chickadee-like birds, but during warbler migration, you see a black cap, just take that second look and make sure you're not seeing a blackpoll warbler. The ovenbird is one you're going to hear long before you see it. They look like a thrush. If you're familiar with hermit thrushes and Swainsons and wood thrushes, they're tiny. They're usually on the ground real low, and they yell, teacher, 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 out of the woods. Orange crest on their head or orange blaze. But really, we're going to hear them and not so much see them. But if you see what you think is just the teeny tiniest thrush you've ever seen, just take another look and see if it's your ovenbird. So named because they make an oven-shaped, dome-shaped oven nest on the ground. Another one where behavior is key is our northern water thrush. Luckily, another one that hops along or walks on the ground, and they're going to be on the water's edge. So they like to pick up all the bugs that are hanging right at the shoreline. Again, they pump their tail up and down. So drab streaky warbler, bold eye line, but watch for that, behavior and location, location, location. You're going to see them by water, bopping that tail up and down. There is a closely related warbler called the Louisiana water thrush that we can get up here too. All right, the Blackburnian is a showstopper. It is orange, orange, orange with, if you are a Star Trek fan, has the uniform logo backwards on its, sideways on its face in black, bold white eye ring. They do go mid-story to high, but because that, just have that orange flaming face, very easy to ID out in the field. The bay-breasted, again, even though I tell people ignore color, this one with that crimson with cream with black and back, or not crimson, chestnut, and then back down to chestnut, that patterning, if you kind of squint your eyes, you can see where the patterns are. But, in the sun, that really is a standout. Not as common to see as some of the other ones. And then the black-throated blue is our other black-throated warbler with a bluish back. Great place to see these guys is Oberg Mountain up on the Superior Shore. Head up there, up by Lutzen, and they nest up there. It's where I saw my first black-throated blue. So blue back, black throat. Black-throated green, blue throat, green back. You can compare those two pretty easily. The cerulean warbler is our other kind of bluish warbler, but they just have that little thin collar going on and a little more streaky, but very obvious, not as common, but people get pretty excited when they see these guys. So blue warbler with a little thin collar is going to be your cerulean warbler. Oh, but wait, there are 3 other birds that like to hang out with our warblers. The ruby-crowned kinglet shows up before our myrtle warblers or our butterbutts. They're kind of our first. They're a little smaller. They're a little more deliberate. So maybe 4 pixie sticks for breakfast. Big eyeball because they have that white around it. They're a big round looking bird. Like if you draw a cartoon bird, you're going to draw a kinglet with white wing bars. So they're already here. I have been seeing a bunch around. They can be mid, high, low, but right before the warblers. You can see the ruby crown, but it's when it's kind of angry or frisky feeling. Other than that, it looks kind of like this olivey green, but those white wing bars and that big eye, real round looking bird. The golden crown kinglet arrives early, leaves early, looks like the other one, but they always keep their golden crown. So that's really obvious because it's bordered in this bold black. So that's our ruby crown kinglet. And you can see they're just round looking. And lastly, we have our blue-gray gnatcatcher, which ironically was my first warbler of the season. They hang around with warblers, kind of migrate with them. They cock their tail up almost like a little check mark and have white flashes on the outer tail feathers. They're all gray and they have kind of an angry bird face with that black eyebrow. You can't always see it, but it is there. But just watch for that check mark looking profile when they're hopping around, and that black tail on the blue is really obvious. All right, so it's a lot, people. We have like 34 warblers that come through the state all within a few weeks. Some stick around and nest, some go up into Canada. How do you do it all? Because you can't do it all in 30 minutes. You can download some apps onto your phone. The Audubon Bird Guide is really nice because it is free. It'll give you pictures, descriptions, what they sound like. You can also download the Merlin app that I talked about earlier. It will walk you through and ask you some questions. If you're seeing a bird, you can put in a photo, and again, you can hold it up and ask it to listen for what's around you. So that's a great way to just practice your ID skills and what to look for. Just remember, when you see a warbler, don't take your eyes off of it and dive into your field guide. Take a moment, just look for those field marks, because remember, most of them are yellow. And if you're like yellowbird and dive in, you're going to miss those little field marks. Just look for one or two things that make that bird a standout rather than color. You know, is it streaky? Is it fancy? Does it have a cap? It's going to get you a lot farther faster. If you really want to dive deep into the warbler universe, the Warbler Guide by Tom Stevenson and Scott Whittle. They also have a website, which is thewarblerguide.com. They have a book. They have an app with tons of detailed information about warblers and all the ways to see them. Or you can often buy these little laminated trifold pocket guides. I just grabbed one off of Amazon to carry along in your field guide or your pocket, just to give you a quick reference too. The Warbler Guide is really great. They have all these little charts that you can download and print out. So it is funny because, as you can see, they have how to see them upside down, how to see them if you're seeing them sideways, just the heads. And you can download all those. They have fall warblers. I laminate them and then tuck them in my field guide, so I have a quick reference as I'm going along. How do you attract them? So as I said, these guys eat bugs. They don't really come to feeders, with the exception of a few. Myrtle warblers will come to some suet feeders sometimes, so a few will, but in general, they're out there eating bugs. So the best thing we can do to birds, and if you've been paying attention, you know that bird populations are down 30% or more since 1970. So for every 10 birds people saw in 1970, we are only seeing 7. And one key thing we can do to help all these species is plant native plants. A bur oak tree, which is native, can support like up to 500 insect and bird species, where something like a ginkgo only does 15 to 20. So it really does make a big difference. And remember, just to raise a chickadee, a baby chickadee needs about 5,000 caterpillars. So getting these native plants is important, and Audubon has made it easy. If you go to audubon.org, click on how to help and plant native plants, you can put in your zip code and your email, and then you go in and it'll show you the plants that work and are native for our area. You know, are they sunny? Are they shade? You can even do it by what birds you want to attract. You know, you can put in warblers and they will direct you to what trees or shrubs those birds like. So it's a great way to help bugs, to help birds, and just help them get a leg up. And you're be bringing them to your yard without spending a ton on any bird seed that they won't eat anyway. The other great thing you could do, and I'm a huge fan of, is buy your duck stamp. So duck stamps, 99 cents out of every single dollar goes directly into wildlife, wildland restoration and conservation. It's an incredibly effective program to help our habitat. I buy one every single year. It gets you into wildlife refuges for free, which is a nice bonus, and it's beautiful art. So go ahead, birders, buy your duck stamp, put that money right back into nature, and that'll help our warblers too, because all these habitats will host similar species. All right, now that your brain is completely shattered and full of information, we will get into questions. And again, here is my email. You are welcome to email me at any time with questions. You see a weird bird, you got a picture of it, I will ID it for you if I can. Send it my way. I even have a friend who always sends me recordings. It's always a blue jay, but I love it. All right. And here we go. I'm going to stop this, and there's my face.
Thanks, Amy. Such great information. The ID tips are fabulous and the photos are awesome. I'm so glad we are recording this, because then we can go back and quiz ourselves and try to remember all those species. So yes, this is recorded. Again, we'll have it up in a few days. So again, go to the DNR's YouTube channel. And also, if you go to mndnr.gov/discover, you'll go to our webpage and you see all of our recordings from all our past episodes, including this one. So thank you for all the great information. We have some time here for questions. So if you have a good question, again, in the bottom right corner of WebEx here, there's 3 dots. If you don't see the Q&A, you can access that and put your questions in, and we can have Amy try to answer a bunch of those. There was one really good question right off the bat here. Just one second. Lisa happens to ask about the metro area because I know it depends on where you live, but she's wondering how long does the spring migration last, and when, basically when can we start looking for them, or how long will we be able to find these birds?
So I would say start looking now. As I say, I've seen kinglets, yellow rump warbler today on my tree. I saw a blue-gray gnatcatcher, I think on Monday. So they are dribbling in. It'll be interesting to see what happens with these storms and rains that are coming in, because sometimes that'll hold birds up. So a couple of years ago, there was cold weather, it hung them up, and then they blasted through the metro to get to their nesting grounds. So it's a little bit of a crapshoot, but start looking now. Look high. Sorry, people, you're going to have what we call warbler net because you're always looking at the tops of the trees. But go ahead. I'm hoping that they arrive before those trees really leaf out, because that can make it, they're the size of a leaf, so it can make it a bit of a challenge. But there are a lot of great parks in the metro. Any park that has water near it will be great migrant trap. Cedar Avenue Bridge to the Bass Ponds down by the Mall of America is fantastic. Anywhere along actually that Mississippi or Minnesota River Valley. Wood Lake Park in Richfield gets a lot of warblers in it, as does Veterans Park in Richfield. I know people go up to Central Park in Roseville and get a lot. Say that's a great little place, but there's so many, it's hard to kind of narrow it down. But just keep your eyes open. You can see them anywhere. Trees.
Well, you answered the next question. Julie was asking about the best places to look for the Twin Cities or across the state, and Jennifer actually had the same question, but she was asking more about Grand Marais. How about the North Shore?
North Shore, I have worked my way right up the edge of the North Shore and seen them along the lake in the trees in migration. Oberg Mountain is great. Again, that's where those black-throated blue warblers, you'll get black-throated green up there. If you want that Connecticut warbler, you can go into Saxon Bog, and they have some warblers that are going to be nesting in there. The key I always say is you like to bird the edges, right? These are insect eaters. And so a lot of times they're want that kind of protection of trees, but then they can, the edges are where the sun is and where those bugs are going to be. And by water. So water seems to be a really good. So any of those riparian, which is water tree habitats, is going to be a great place for them. Brainerd Lakes, I see a bunch around there. I know we've had some golden wing nesting up there in the past. But yeah, up on the North Shore, I would just work around those lakes. Anywhere you
We have a bunch of state parks on the North Shore, and I'm sure they're all fabulous locations. And up and down the river valleys, like you said, the Mississippi down in the southern part of the state. We have connections with Winona and the St. Mary's campus and some of the other parks and stuff that are down on the Mississippi Blufflands. Spectacular birding, the trails that go up and down through the valleys. And really all, as you like, all rivers. I grew up in the Blue Earth River in southern Minnesota, and if you can get on the river and see wooded areas, you're going to potentially see birds, warblers at this time of the year.
Places.
Dawn is saying that she's by Lindstrom and RCKIs and yellow. I figured out the other one. Yellow rump warblers have arrived this weekend.
Yes. Yep.
Sanja, go ahead.
Nope, go ahead.
Sanja said or asked, do warblers nest in ash trees, and what do you recommend regarding pruning and takedown of diseased trees? So we just recently did a program on emerald ash borer and the issues around ash trees and removing them. So check out that video we did a few months ago, or last summer. I think it was last summer, last fall, on our YouTube channel. You can see that. But anything else you want to add about that?
Ooh, that's a tough one, because I don't know how they interact with the ash trees specifically. Some birds do like certain types of trees to nest in, like pine warblers like pine trees. So do blue jays and crows. Ash tree specific, I'm not gonna even guess. I don't know. The one rule is if you notice birds nesting, hold off and try to let them finish their nesting before you take that tree down, if at all possible. One, they're a protected species by the Migratory Bird Treaty Act, so it is illegal to take down trees when you have nesting birds in them. So if you just wait till those birds fledge and then go on from there, but per ash specifically, that info is not in my brain.
Benji posted that actually in the Q&A. Maybe put that in the chat too, if you can, Benji, for the Emerald Ash Borer webinar. Good point about the pruning. Absolutely, the best time to prune trees and take down trees is in the wintertime for some of the reasons that you're mentioning, but also for disease control on the trees themselves. Because if you start damaging a tree in the summer, like you said, all these insects, bugs, and other pests that are around can actually attack the tree, but they are not around in the winter. So winter, late winter in particular, is the best time to be doing that.
Yeah.
Patrick said, maybe I missed this, but at the high categorical level, what's the commonality that makes all of these birds warblers? And I would add, and how do you tell they're not a finch or a phoebe or a sparrow or a thrush?
Yeah. Perfect. And it's all about, well, genetics. One, they're all insect eaters. So that's an easy one. And they all have a similar shaped beak. So here, I'm going to share my last slide one more time, just so you can see this. That beak, that is an insect eating beak. It's sharp and pointed. They all have those dinky little beaks, real tiny beaks for getting in and sussing those bugs out from leaves and pine needles and everything else. So whereas our cardinals have more of a conical shaped beak, right? Raptors have a hook-shaped beak. There's my hook. Hummingbirds have that long nectar-shaped beak. So look at the beak, and you're going to see it's a tiny, tiny bird. It's pretty frantic. Remember, 5 pixie sticks have gone into it with that really tiny, sharp beak. And those are going to be your warblers. And so that's what kind of makes them together as a family. And then we can go, you could go deeper into the taxonomy, obviously, which would be a whole nother presentation. But they're held together by what they eat and that beak and kind of body shape.
Okay, good. Jay's wondering, would they eat mealworms in a feeder since they eat bugs?
So some would come. I have heard there's Lucy's warbler down in the south will come to mealworm feeders. Mealworms, a lot of birds like them. You certainly can try. I have never put out mealworms. I'm a little bit of a lazy bird feeder, but it's definitely, some of our birds are so used to going to bird feeders where warblers aren't, but I would think for sure yellow rumps, because they're coming to that suet anyway, that you could put out some mealworms. But, just like they're going to the trees they're familiar with, because that's where the bugs that they're familiar with are. Are they used to going to feeders? Not so much. But yeah, of all the things, I would think mealworms would be a good one to put out, but no guarantees that they'd come.
Sure. The bluebirds will definitely come.
Yep, bluebirds,
For your mealworms.
thrushes, lots of other birds are going to love those mealworms that you put out. Yeah, everybody eats bugs. Even hummingbirds eat bugs. So if you can put out mealworms, everyone's going to be happy. Okay.
Danielle was asking, and I think maybe we need to have you come back and just talk about how to use binoculars.
Oh,
She's asking, is it more difficult to ID birds with only binoculars instead of a high quality camera? Because some birds move very quickly and it's hard to distinguish any markings without capturing a photo. So is that good advice?
I do not take any photos, and I never have in my 30 years of birding. So a little bit I'm going to argue. So one, ignore color as much as you can. I mean, you can say, oh, that's a yellow bird, but then look for those field marks and don't think you need all of them. You need 3 field marks, I'm convinced, other than gulls, they're the worst. Other than gulls, really 3 field marks can get you there on most birds. And just like if you walk into kids walk into a classroom with all their friends, they can just take a quick look and they're like, oh, that's, so-and-so and so-and-so, even if their backs are to them, because they just know them, right? They know that it feels like their friend. And you can get that way with warblers really quickly. So don't think like this mind-blowing 30 warblers in 30 minutes. That's hard. But when you're out there, you're going to get that feel for them. You don't need a fancy camera. There is some tricks really quickly to using your binoculars is make sure you bend them to fit your face. You don't want to see any black. You want to see one image. If you wear glasses, put your eye cups in, flip them in or flip them down. If you do not wear glasses, then you want your eye cups pulled out and flipped out because all they do, that's how far the lens is from your eye, and your eyes glasses will do it for you. So glasses in, no glasses out. And then adjust your diopter, and that's the ring that's usually on the right barrel of your binoculars. And you can do that. You can look it up online, but really quickly find something to look at. I like license plates. You cover the right barrel of your binoculars, keep both your eyes open, look through the left, focus, and then cover the left one and adjust your diopter until everything is crisp and clean, and then don't touch your diopter again. Just leave it. That will adjust that fine focus and give you the nice crisp vision. Stick with about an 8 to 10 power. Anymore, it's really hard to hold steady. And then the second number, the 8x32, the 32 is the objective lens, or the big lens at the end. The larger that number, the more light gathering you're going to get, the wider your view, but the heavier your binoculars. So you kind of have to play around. Do you have arthritis? Are you a little shaky? You can put those numbers together. Feel free to send me an email and I can walk you through and help you out, go through all that again with you. I have no problem. I can even send you a slide.
Thanks. And I think if your eyesight isn't horrible, like I have glasses, but it's actually, I feel like without my glasses on, it's easier to use binoculars and I can still see pretty well with them. Is that accurate to say some folks can, might be easier to take your glasses off to see through binoculars?
Sure. Yeah, that absolutely could be the case. Not me. I would literally walk into the trees. So, yeah, play around, see what works for you. National Camera up in Golden Valley. I'm not giving them like a go shop there, but you can go there. It's one of the few places in the metro where they know a lot about binoculars, and you can try out different binoculars because some will fit. I have a teeny face. So a lot of binoculars don't fit my teeny weeny beanie, and I need to make sure I have a very narrow interpupillary distance, if you like fancy words. But it's a great place to go, or go, any of the stores that stock binoculars, just start trying them out. Go to a bird outing with an Audubon group or a park. Ask people if you can look through their binoculars, because really that's the best way to do it is to try binoculars. Yep.
Let's talk about that a little bit more about, how to find programs and classes and experts and to learn more. Because experience always helps, right?
Yeah. So again, there are Audubon groups across the state. So you can join an Audubon group. I always say join a group and learn a lot faster. A lot of the local parks, state parks, will have guided bird walks that you can go on. You can look at MOU, Minnesota Ornithologists Union, has guided bird walks that you can go on. Another group is the Kestrels. I help run that one, and that is an inclusive group for people who identify as female to create a safe space. All these groups, any level, you can be really good or just starting. Everyone will welcome you in. And then Urban Bird Collective is in the metro, and that centers BIPOC and LGBTQ plus birders. So they do welcome anyone, but they are just centering for those communities to give them a safe space. So there are a lot of places that you can go. And then obviously, if you have small humans that you can come to my bird club. You are the tag along, but we always have 2 guides, one for the grown-ups, one for the kids. And our groups are free too as a nonprofit. So all of these are free guided place where you can go and bird with other people and get to know your birds. And then I usually have it on a slide, but there is a website called birdingquiz.com. birdingquiz.com, and you can quiz yourself on birds. So it's really easy. You put in Minnesota, you can put in warblers and work through all the warblers that are seen in the state. So that's another good way on rainy days or in winter that you can practice.
Great. And there are Facebook groups, right, for maybe even some of these different groups of birds and stuff too, right? You can find them that way.
Yep. Look up Minnesota Birding is one. There's Minnesota Birds and Birders. If you put in Minnesota Birds, these are going to pop up. There's Minnesota Light. The Kestrels and Urban Bird Collective have Facebook groups. So yeah, there's a lot of Facebook groups around. I know there is one meetup group. They're not on Facebook for 30 and younger birders. So the young set. I don't qualify anymore. If you send me an email, I know one of the people in it, and I can connect you with that if you want to be with the young kids.
Right. And then if you know of a nature center, especially in the Twin Cities, we have tons of different nature centers. Some of them are private, and then some are city owned or county owned, parks and stuff like Three Rivers Park District. If you search with those or connect with those local parks and nature centers, they have obviously provide programming, or a lot of them do education programming. So they are, I'm sure, doing some birding stuff too.
And some libraries will have takeout kits for bird
Mm.
watching, where you can get a little kit with binoculars and a field guide and stuff. Not everyone, I know, like I think Ramsey County has them, South St. Paul had some. So you can check out your local library for books and resources too.
Good. Dawn said, could you talk about the yellowthroat, hooded, and prairie warblers in Minnesota? She said they apparently in the past weren't very common here, and now they are.
The yellowthroat is just moving in. I remember I was teaching a class in downtown Minneapolis and it was spotted. And during my lunch break, I like blasted over to Golden General Mills Park and to see this bird. And then I found it in the same spot next year. So they are starting to move in. And that's the case with many warblers, is they, or many species, can expand their range, contract their range. Their numbers may increase, their numbers may decrease. I personally hadn't heard, I'm not familiar of the ups and downs of the prairie and the hooded. I would suggest going to eBird, which is another great resource, or the Cornell Lab of Ornithology, allaboutbirds.org. They will probably have more demographic information. You could also reach out the MOU, Minnesota Ornithologist Union, which is MOU.org. MOUMN.org. They do a lot of tracking in the state. So I can't really talk to numbers per se. I do know the yellow-throated warbler has been moving in, which has been really exciting. Prairie, again, much more rare, and hooded, much more rare.
A couple more reports. That one abbreviation I wasn't sure of, Dawn clarified, it's the ruby crown kinglets.
Oh, yeah.
So she didn't see those up north. And then Janet in Northfield, which folks don't know, that's an hour south of the cities. We've been seeing one or two yellow rumped at the bird bath in our backyard this week. So cute to see the one who was splashing.
Yeah, and actually that is a good point. Is if you put in, they call them water features, which to me sounds so fancy. But if you put in a bird bath or anything like a little fountainy thing, that can really draw in warblers more than anything else that you can do, and all birds. So you can even get cheap and just get a gallon jug of water and keep refilling it, put a little pinhole in the bottom so it's dripping into, I mean, it's not the prettiest thing, but just dripping into a pan that sits under a pot, right? Grab that, go to wherever you buy plants and just get one of those drip trays. That's your bird bath. Stick that drippy thing over the top of it, or even a hose on a trickle, and that will bring in birds too. Just that sound will
Sure.
really bring in a lot of birds.
Someone mentioned that they've had a lot of warblers feed on mealworms during cold snaps, which
Yep.
makes sense, right? When it's cold, there's less insects available.
Yeah, so if they know it's there, yeah. And I know for sure that yellow rumps do that, butterbutts do that. And then, yeah, pay attention to your field guides. Like yellow rumped warblers have been now renamed myrtle warbler, and before that they were myrtle warbler, so they've been lumping and splitting. So
Yeah, let's
get a
let's
little
talk about
confused.
that. That's
Yeah.
confusing, especially if you have older books. I mean, how are these names made, and who's doing that, and why are the changes? I mean, what can you what can you tell us about this world of naming birds?
So they are primarily done by the AOS, the American Ornithologist Society. So they keep, there are different ones. So there's British ones and Canada ones, but we primarily here are using the AOS. They're the ones that are naming the birds in the United States and other places, or our North American birds, and whether Hawaii's in there or not, all kinds of things. They make all these decisions, and there's a committee that decides based on whether it's behavior, genetics, there are two kind of camps on how you lump and split birds. But a lot of times it's, can they interbreed their sounds? But now that we're doing more genetic testing, they find out like genetically these are two distinct species, and then they name them. There is a movement right now, which personally I am really excited about, called Bird Names for Birds. And so it's getting rid of all those eponymous names like Wilson's warbler. So yellow-throated warbler, that is great. When you were beginning, you're like, it has a yellow throat. I can remember that. Versus Wilson's warbler, you have to somehow connect an all yellow bird with a little black cap to some guy that died a long time ago. So names will be changing because we are going to get rid of, they decided it's just easier to get rid of all the eponymous names in a swoop rather than pick away at them. We will be having some name changes, but it is around here, the AOS, that comes up with those names and will lump and split. And there's big debate. So they've been debating like the northern cardinal. They've been debating on splitting the northern cardinal to a southern version in Arizona and then one up here. Then they debate and then they don't do it and then they decide to do it. And so that's what happened with the myrtle warbler. It was the myrtle. They merged it with the Audubon to create the yellow rump warbler, and then they voted and decided, nope, they're distinct. So now we're back to having a myrtle warbler and an Audubon warbler. The Audubon is in the west. The myrtle is our eastern one. So yeah, the lumping and splitting, if you're a big time lister, it either makes you really sad or really happy because suddenly your list gets bigger or suddenly your list gets smaller.
Well, that's a good segue to another question. And how do you definitively, I know it's experience probably in getting out, when the bird, you can positively identify a bird versus I'm not sure, especially like sparrows, right? And when do you feel comfortable in checking it off your list? Because I know I saw this one, or I'm not really sure what that was.
It's a real personal thing. Like some
Okay.
people have to see it and hear it. Some people need a photo. Some people are just like, yeah, pretty sure that that's it.
I will call Amy and have her confirm it.
Yes, I will confirm, or I'll get you to someone. Sparrows are easier than you think too, once you really focus in on them. Gulls, no, they're the worst. But
Oh.
you really just come up with your own thing. It's your own list, and cut them up with what you're comfortable with. Do you like to see it and hear it? Do you just like to see it? Do you just like to hear it? Whatever. You get to do what you want to do. It's a loosey-goosey
Okay.
personal thing. So I wouldn't stress about it too much. Just have
All
fun.
right. Good advice. Anne asked a really good question. How important is time of day when looking for warblers? And also, are there weather issues, differences, temperatures that you should consider?
So, okay, the nice thing is when it's cold, they're going to be lower. And that's because the insects are lower. So the hotter it is, the higher the insects. So that's a really easy one. On cold days when we don't want to go out, I will see yellow rump warblers all over the street because they're getting all those bugs off the street. So unfortunately, cold and cruddy weather can be better because they're just lower down. Prevailing winds is a big one. So if it is really windy, but the winds are going to the south, right? It's holding up the migration. They don't want to fly into that wind. That takes a lot of energy. Or they get a big tailwind and they're like, whoop, see ya, Minneapolis and St. Paul. We're going to blast up to Cloquet all in one big swoop. The nice thing about birding in the morning, there is, before I forget, there is a thing called the birdcast where they use radar to track bird migration. So if you're really wanting to know when things are showing up, you can tune into Birdcast, the website, or a lot of the Facebook people will be like, look at Birdcast, the birds are coming. Morning versus afternoon. So personally, I'm a late morning birder, but that's because I don't want to get my butt up out of bed at 5 in the morning to be out there at sunrise. The advantage of being up early is the birds are more active and they're talking more because they're reestablishing territory. So they're all singing, they're all, saying, hey, come check out my nest. Hey, lady, let's be friends. And hey, you, stay out of here. So they're saying a lot and they're moving a lot because they're hungry and they need to eat, right? So that is what makes morning nice. They are out there all the doodah day. I bird in the middle of the day sometimes. It's a little quieter, but they're there all the time. And then there's another evening chorus where they're kind of reestablishing territory before bedtime, getting that last little snack in. So yeah, mornings can be better for those reasons, but Do you have to get up at the crack of dawn? No. You can warbler whenever you dang well please.
Yeah, they're so active, right? So that's one of the good things during the daylight hours, at least. So
Yep.
you can get out whenever you can get out, go out.
Yeah, maybe on top of a hill. It's always nice when you can be at the top of a bluff and you're right at the tree line so your neck doesn't get so
Yeah.
stiff.
Benji, did we miss any other questions? That I think I got most of them. Anything else that we didn't see?
No, I think we got them all. We
Okay.
can get out and warbler any dang time. I love it.
Yes.
Yeah, it's
There's
great
lots
time
of
of the
links in
year.
the chat. So if anybody wants to follow those links, click on those so they open up in your browser quick as we quickly run out of time.
Yeah, and just to highlight, next week, we're talking about some multiple new opportunities to catch a state record fish. So one of our fisheries experts will be joining us to go over how you can do that. I mean, there are dozens, I think, actually, of some of the changes we made and a lot of catch and release records. So it'll be really fun to hear about that and find out. If you ever want to catch a state record, here's your opportunity in the next few weeks, I think, or months. So again, the recording of this will be up in a few days at mndnr.gov/discover, and then also on our YouTube page. So check those out and give yourself, learn some more, and then you can quiz yourself by going back through Amy's slides. So it was so great to have you here. I love talking about birds. It was really fun, and the weather's getting perfect for this to be able to get out. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, thank you for having me, and I love talking birds, so it was a pleasure.
All right, we'll have you back some other time to do that again, I think.
Yay.
Everybody have a good day. Thanks for joining us.